Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, so we have deep dives out for Sandman and Shocker. And in this video I'm going to be breaking down the abilities of Shocker, and then Sandman is going to be following soon after. And both of them actually do look quite good. I have a suspicion or prediction so far that Shocker is likely going to be the more popular one because big numbers and shorter ramp up and better suitability for stuff like polygons. But it will be interesting to see how it works out. So let's take a look. So Shocker is of tech class. Uh, his visual character model. I'm personally not the biggest fan, but take it or leave it. I suppose it's kind of alright, but I'm just not a super huge fan of that aesthetic. But the point is that what everybody is talking about, he can drop some massive heavy attacks and relatively straightforward and short rotations. As here we can see, under 80 hits in the fight, he's capable of delivering 550k heavy attack, and obviously that's an overkill. So in this next clip, we're going to be able to see more of his abilities flat out without me having to kind of like relay the information from the deep dive. So here we can see that Shocker's custom padded suit grants him immunity to shock effects and concussion. Now, immunity to concussion is quite rare, and I absolutely love that we have it here because there are some extremely annoying nodes. Would love if there was also immunity to disorient. Just saying, we still only have one pseudo disorient immune champion realistically. Well, I mean, there are a few more champions kind of deal with it, but we need more disorient immunity as well, is what I'm trying to say. Impact compensators reduce the duration of incoming stuns by 50%. That's quite nice because combined with limber, you barely get stunned. I think max limber reduces the stun duration by what, 48%? So you would reduce stun duration by like 98%, so he would almost become stun immune, I believe, or close to it. Also, if the opponent has Limber Mastery active, it is removed, and that is a quite nice touch. I do like it. Shocker cannot land critical hits, but all his attacks have armor penetration equal to his critical rating. So he's joining in a relatively long line of champions in tech class that does not crit. We have Guardian, Solar Centurion, Guilty in 2099, and Shuri doesn't really crit, and I'm sure we have more of that. Infamous Iron Man, and so forth. And his core basic mechanic is going to be these vibro shock charges, where landing or being struck by a light or medium attacks grants you one indefinite charge, and then based on the amount of charge, you get benefits. For instance, at 50 plus charges, dashing makes you unblockable. Also, at 50 plus charges, you kind of have a guaranteed auto block on opponent's special attacks, where you will auto block the remaining of the special attack after getting hit by the first hit, I think. And there are additional benefits to that. So he looks fairly straightforward to play. His basic rotation also is fairly straightforward. Also, I believe about 25 charges, he can start removing opponent's prowess effects with his medium attacks. Or was it that he has a chance to remove opponent's prowess per charge that he has? And yeah, so he's going to be able to combat mutants gaining prowess. He can be just passively removing that with his own mediums. Additionally, at some point, he starts stunning opponents. I think per each charge, he has 0.25% chance to stun the opponent. So at 100 charges, 1 in 4 medium hits would briefly stun the opponent. I'm actually not a huge fan of that because, these unexpected stuns can make the gameplay a bit jittery, but in general, he will have access to a random stun chance on his basic attacks as well. The more charges you have, the more you can do that. And here we can see that it's his auto block ability, where you can consume, when you're above 50 charges, I believe you consume 25, and then you can trigger auto block. However, there is a way to get rid of his charges as well. There are, well, the most important one will be intercept him whilst he is at 50 plus charges, therefore unblockable. He's going to lose 50 charges. So that is going to be super important when it comes to dealing with him and being able to land your special attacks. Whenever he's going to be above 50 charges, him dashing in at you is going to make him unblockable. If he gets hit while he is unblockable, he loses 50 of his charges. Additionally, if Shocker does block break because of his unblockable, So this is going to be more offensive drawback. It's kind of like with Juggernaut. But if you will break opponent's block, you will lose 20 charges yourself. So you don't necessarily want to super heavily rely on that. Shocker's unblockable. And here we are. Here we can see that he's losing charges if he gets intercepted, basically. And that's fair enough. And then we have obviously his special attacks. His special one grants him 25 charges and then has a chance to stun and has a few more additional effects. But the money maker really is going to be the special 2 because that inflicts physical vulnerability and also a very long passive stun. Now, this passive stun will be removed after you strike the opponent like 3 times or something like that. But the point of it is that you can drop your level 2, dash in at the opponent and start charging heavy attack, kind of like with Mantis, for the max duration. You see, when you start charging heavy attack, you are consuming your charges that you have built up. And when all the charges are consumed, you basically release the heavy attack. And for each charge that you consumed, you get a damage increase. So Shocker in its own base is not going to have the greatest damage, but his damage delivery is going to have like one massive burst of heavy attack. And we're going to see that in a bit. Also, we have level 3, where for longer fights, you can gain a massive Energize that lasts until you reach 2 bars of power. And while Energize is active, Vibro Shock Charge max is increased to 150. So this is kind of like to increase his reach. Base idea is you drop your level 2, then drop like a few level 1s in order to build up your charge very quickly to 150, get to level 2, drop that, and drop a massive, massive heavy attack. And his SIG ability also is going to be kind of super important for speed. The first ability, whenever Shocker is stunned or the opponent gains a prowess effect, gain 3 Vibro Shock charges, it's kind of nice to have. It's more like a defensive ability, I would suppose. But the second one, Shocker's first special 1 in each fight, costs 100% up to 100% less power. Super important for kind of shorter fight finish. So basically, in most fights, what you will end up doing is you're going to end up throwing 1 or 2 level 1s, then building up to level 2 and nuking down your opponent. Having not to use power for one special attack effectively would basically mean that you just have to drop level 1 and level 2, more or less, in the power economy. Basically, you need to gain 3 bars of power instead of 4, kind of like nuke down most fights. And that makes a huge, huge difference for contents like Battlegrounds. So his Awaken ability is definitely going to be quite important, in my opinion. And then obviously we can see some massive, massive damage being delivered there. I think I failed at taking screenshots. Here we go, 323 hits there from how many charges? I didn't see how many charges was there at start, but it's definitely a big boy heavy attack. And ultimately, because of the way he is built, it is quite clear to me that Shocker is likely going to be a popular Battlegrounds champion, because it's going to be like one level 1 and then level 2, where basically you get a free level 1. So we're going to have to experiment with the exact damage output, because I'm sure that some of the matches you're going to be able to get away with Shocker dropping a level 1, costing no power, level 2, and then there's just dropping a heavy attack. Or in some fights, it's going to be 2 level 1s and a level 2, which leads me to think he's probably going to be quite quick for Battlegrounds length fights. And that automatically means he's going to be quite a bit in demand, because typically champions that are quite quick is pretty much all but guaranteed to be at least somewhat popular. But in case of Shocker, him having, the ability not to crit, remove the prowess, he doesn't rely on any buffs at all, gain any buffs, and yeah, that whole not critting thing again, passive stun on his level 2, it just seems that he would likely work quite well in several difficult matchups. Like, he'd probably be quite good against many Mystic champions as well, most of the Mutant champions, and so forth. So I also think that his rotation, if you can get away with basically just throwing a level 1 then level 2, you can likely get away with not baiting out special attacks from opponents if you have to, or just, block baiting heavies. So it's going to be interesting to do some testing with the guy, but he does look quite impressive. So now let's break down his synergies very quickly. So with Spider-Man or Punisher, solo synergy at 50 Vibro Shock charges, defenders are 50% more likely to attack to hit special attacks. This is basically giving him a passive taunt. Cool for questing, I suppose, but that's that's pretty much all there is. Not too bad. It's quite useful. Taunt is always nice. Now with Ant-Man and Black Cat. Ant-Man, the final hit of special attack 1 grants plus 5% attack rating for each debuff on the opponent. This synergy really pissed me off, because it's something that we used to have except 10 times better, and now they're making a new synergy that's, extremely, extremely watered down version. So, yeah, it's just for the level 1, and yeah, no, whatever, keep it, not interested. Attacks that steal the calling card are guaranteed critical hits. Now, this could be amazing synergy for Black Cat, because if you are quite good at heavy spamming and punishing opponents' specials and heavies with your own heavies, you're going to be dropping that calling card quite a lot. And obviously, Black Cat inflicts bleeds and critical bleeds on the opponent on her critical hits. So that could be quite huge damage boost for Black Cat, which I absolutely love, especially in shorter fights. And then Shocker, while unblockable, gains some attack rating. That's nice. Nothing too insane there. Now we have attacking against Spider-Man, Vulture, and the Mystery Champion. Medium attacks inflict damage over time debuff, dealing 20% of attack over 2 seconds. Just giving a dot effect to these champions, quite neat. Shocker gets shock effects. Spider-Man Stark Enhanced gains Rapture. So I love that Stark Enhanced Spidey would have access to Rapture. That's quite cool. And Vulture would have access to Disintegration, which is quite interesting. Again, it's not a game breaker synergy, but it's a nice bit of extra utility that you can give these champions. And then we have You Can't Escape Me with Spider-Man Symbiote, where activating a special attack, Spider-Man Symbiote gains True Strike buff for 10 seconds. It's not too bad. It's all right. Except it's Spider-Man Symbiote, and nobody's really going to play him for most part. And then with Shocker, activating a special attack inflicts a 50% cowardice debuff. Again, I don't think it's the most important thing for Shocker, because he already has a way to deal with prowess for Kitty matchup. And in the rest of the matchups, let's face it, cowardice isn't the most sought after debuff in general. So ultimately, that is it, I believe. And yeah, I do think that Shocker has a very straightforward, similar, easy to understand, and most importantly, easy to execute loop, which definitely makes me believe that Shocker is going to be quite a popular character. Just fight normally against your opponent, drop a level 1, then, based on the health pool, either drop another level 1 and finally spend that power, or just build up level 2, drop the level 2, charge a heavy attack, they're dead. As straightforward rotation, more or less, as it gets for these new champions. You don't need to dance, rattle, intercept, light intercept, bob and weave, and any of that stuff. And I like that. You don't need to watch specifically when you activate special attacks, even like, for instance, Penny Parker has a relatively straightforward rotation, but even then you need to, make sure that you cross the bars of power and stuff like that. Seems like very easy to use champion. And yeah, I think that's awesome. So ultimately, I do have quite high hopes for Shocker. Additionally, this is a funny side note, but last days I received a bunch of comments like, "Oh, you always are negative of every new champion, every buffs," and I actually legitimately went back and counted, and I think virtually all of the new champions I have been giving, relative cautious praise recently. That I'm just wondering whether the same people watch these videos as well. Anyways, I do think Shocker is gonna be good. That's all I'm gonna say there. And let me know what you guys think. Catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about